I'm sitting with Johann Huber-Gutierrez, a digital, digital maven, digital strategist, digital expert.
Crazy stuff in digital.
Yeah, you've worked with companies like Barnes & Noble, you've worked with Macy's and Bloomingdale's. Thank you for coming and sharing a few minutes.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you being here. I want to talk about customer engagement, really in the retail experience, because this is the the pot of gold for retailers. And right now, I wonder if they're using it effectively to actually reach out and grab customers. What, in your experience, are retailers grasping this? Are they slowly migrating, or are they running in the mobile space?
Well, I think if you look outside of the U.S., there's a lot of retailers who've really cracked the equation.
Outside of the U.S.?
Yes, especially in places like Japan and Korea, where I've had the fortunate opportunity to work and be involved in some pretty innovative things, where you've seen people do huge volumes, billions of dollars in business, even before smartphones existed. And so that's kind of a bit of a misnomer, that people feel that it's because of the smartphone that we can suddenly do all these great things. No, it's not. It's because the carriers in the US limited smartphones, and the user experience on smartphones in the US was very poor. If you look at places like Japan, Korea, etc., you'll see that the user experiences, the design were simple, they were easy to navigate. I could get to what I wanted to get to, and I made transactions. I reduced the transactional costs so people could, the digital ecosystem was able to grow and develop. When you look at the US and some Latin American countries where carriers have historically taken huge chunks of the revenue, they've really, how can I put, they've really strangled the digital ecosystem in the mobile space specifically, but also they've also disabled cross-channel commerce in a lot of ways. And I think this is where I think Apple has been very helpful in what they were able to do in terms of really enabling things to happen off deck.
Right.
And enabling things to happen off deck, you're taking it out of the hands of the carriers. And I think that was the key thing that Apple did in the American market. And I think this is why in America we give a lot of credit to smartphones and Apple as a result. But the other challenge in the US is that the analytics tools that we rely on to measure are very poor. Right. There's a lot of enterprise applications, enterprise analytics solutions that have been shoehorned into mobile, and they rely on technologies that are web-based technologies, not mobile-based technologies. So a lot of people tell me, oh, I see all this huge traffic, it's all iPhone, it's all iPhone. And I say, well, do you realize the analytics tools that you're using cannot even measure other devices, because the technology that you're relying upon is designed for web, and that doesn't always translate to mobile.
So, there's a disconnect, obviously, about what's going on here. And is this a symptom of mobile first versus kind of mobile third, like the legacy stuff we're dealing with?
I feel, in the U.S. it's this sheeple mentality. It's kind of like a Me Too, and a lot of people want to show the shining object and show off to their boss, and it's really like trying to say stuff like, hey, look, I read an article in a trade magazine like Ad Age or something. Oh, well, we need to do that too. How come we're not doing it too? So everyone rushes in, and they don't put a lot of thought into it. They just start copying each other, and they all kind of like a bunch of lemmings go off a ledge, and then they go, how come this didn't work, or how come it wasn't as good as it could be? Now, I would say that was probably the last 2 years or so. I think a lot of people who fell off that ledge, they invested heavily and they didn't see the returns that they wanted, started asking questions. And they said, wait, do we really have the talent in our organization? Do we have people with digital competency, with mobile experience, who can help us understand this and lead this? The challenge, if I look in terms of an organizational hierarchy, is that you have some incredibly brilliant people who've risen to the top ranks of these companies, and they know their business.
Right.
However, their lieutenants, who they task, they'll hire on people to say, okay, we need to go after mobile. And they hire on some really great minds. But sometimes there's a communication gap in that these folks here who have a lot of experience and could tell you how things should work, when they try to send that message up, these lieutenants have a tendency it becomes a game of telephone. And so by the time it works its way up to the highest levels of the organization, the message has become watered down, or it's become convoluted, or it doesn't truly represent what it is. And this has been my experience in a lot of big companies that I've worked with, is that you come with something, you go, look, this is proven, I've done this before, I know it works, and then you try to introduce it to the organization, and they go, well, we're going to do it our way.
Right.
And so you have folks who are very protective of their little kingdoms, and rightfully so. You've got to be aware of those things. But by the time it works its way up, you get something which is not what it should be.
So when it comes to retail, is that, I think of this as that we suffer from mobile groupthink, right? And that's really what we're all in right now. It's a communal hug, and we might not be hugging around the right thing right now. But you get these breakaway organizations that are really focusing on the core, which is the user experience, about enabling commerce and those kind of things, engaging with customers, and more so engaging with existing customers rather than going out and trying to find new ones and claw through.
I mean, sometimes here's some of the things. It's like organizations have so much data about their customers, but this data becomes siloed, and organizations can't always access it. The people who need to use that data can't get to it, or they don't even know it exists. And then you add in the fact that in a lot of organizations, mobile is treated as a channel. And I think this is a huge mistake. They silo mobile as its own individual thing, whereas mobile is really horizontal. Mobile is really extending all aspects of the business, all aspects of that experience with the customer. And so really enabling a team that can work as almost like an internal consultancy that can really reach out to the different business stakeholders within the organization and say, what are your pain points? What do your customers want? And be able to come in and say, you know what? Through mobile, this is what we can do to extend that, or we can make that easier, we can make it more accessible, so customers don't have to go into the store all the time, or they don't have to wait on the phone, or they don't have to go log into the website. What was my login? I can't remember. Oh, darn it, I don't have my store loyalty card number.
Right.
And so mobile, the idea that I can extend all these things and make them easily accessible in one place, that I think is a very compelling proposition. But if you're not enabling the people in your organization to harvest that data and bubble that data up into a place where everyone can reach it, and give the customers access to their data and the data that matters to your customers, it's not going to be a good experience at all.
So there has to be some examples of retailers that are out there doing something right, that are doing something, not just engagement, because engagement is the opening sequence of this.
Right.
Engagement all the way to lifelong customers, driving commerce, closing deals.
I always say, look to the east. I feel that this is one of the big impediments that we have here in the U.S. Our big handicap is our lack of language. That we're not really good at speaking different languages, and as a result, we're cut off from this. There's just so much that's been done already in Asia. There's so much precedent. There's so much success stories. You look at how catalog companies, for example, are driving 68% of their transactions through mobile. And people go, how do you do that? Well, think about it where you have a camera phone and you're able to sit there and someone doesn't want to necessarily have to write it down and then call in. Or they're on their couch, they're relaxing. They don't want to have to go to their computer. They can literally just snap pictures of the products they like, whether it's actually recognizing the image itself, or sometimes they'll put like a code or a QR code, something to this effect. And you're seeing real dollars being driven through this. Or even people using SMS in an intelligent way. Like if you look at, for example, what Perielis did, where they were seeing very high redemption rates through SMS. I think that people are not fully leveraging all these channels. Also things like if you look at some of the text-to-buy applications, that SMS can be used as a tool where you can actually do a transaction. Not many people think about that.
But it's not as sexy as an app, right? And I think that's what we're suffering from here.
Yeah, I think everyone's obsessed with the shiny object. Now, I always look at it from, what's the base? What's the most basic way that you can make a transaction easier for the customer? Are you enabling one-click transactions?
First thing, right? The first thing that you should be doing.
Companies like if you look at Billing Revolution, I think has been doing some really great work there. I mean, if you look at what they've done with Zynga, for example, where
is that Andy Kleitch's company?
Yeah, Andy. So when you're on Zynga and you want to be able to buy virtual goods or stuff, they've made it so quick and simple and easy to make that transaction. Boom, right through. I want to get this little toy. I want to get this thing for my character. I want to buy this for my for this particular game, and I can literally just make that transaction happen within a single click, without having to force the customer to go and log in and get all this stuff. It's just the more things you're asking the customer to do, you're just putting more and more hurdles. But I'm also excited about things like some of the things that are happening with Clear Exchange, where you're like in Japan, this has been there for a while, where people were connecting their bank accounts directly to mobile, and so we're going to start to see this happen in the U.S. and as a result, that's really made things easier. I don't have to carry around my wallet as much. I don't have to carry around piles of coins, and this is something where I think people put.
That's a key thing, and I don't want to interrupt because it's such an it's a revolutionary leap to move from cash to a virtual wallet or an e-wallet or a mobile wallet, right? But what you're talking about is, listen, just enable your phone to get to your bank account. It's a natural first step, but everybody's thinking up here, and we haven't even done that first transition.
I mean, everyone's chasing NFC, and I love NFC and what you can do with it. But think about it. We've had NFC in credit cards for a long time. I don't know the exact stat, but it was something like over 20% of credit cards out there have these, but less than a fraction of a percent of people actually are using these things, these contactless, credit cards. And you look at how few phones have NFC now. Sure, there's going to be a lot more phones that'll have it, but still, it's going to be a good 3 to 5 years until we have a lot of penetration on this and the customer feels like they have a good reason to use it. In Japan, if you think about it, one of the reasons why people got behind it is it solved some pain points. You didn't have credit cards. Credit cards were barely getting adopted when NFC came out in Japan, and this was a big thing. Is a lot of people for transportation were using their Suica tied to the Felica chip. That card I could go through the turnstile faster. I could link it to my bank account, so I didn't have to carry this purse of coins because a lot of people.
I didn't have to keep charging up my card.
And I didn't have to get in line to get behind other people at the machine to recharge my card every time. I could just literally it's connected to my bank account. Boom! I can go through the turnstile faster. I don't have to carry more stuff. Hey, that solves a pain point. It's easy. It's something I'm already doing. In America, people have been swiping credit cards for a while, so you're going to have to do a lot to change that consumer behavior. And you have to think, what are you going to put out there? And I think Google and a couple others are trying to put some good value behind why you should do it. And I think we're going to see some good things there. But it's still going to be a while till I think we have a significant penetration that you can really say like, hey, this is going to be a big driver of our business.
We could spend the whole day with this, but I really appreciate Johann you coming in and sharing this because your enthusiasm is pulsing through here. I really appreciate you doing this.
Well, thanks for
coming on.
It was a pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Likewise.